Ready? Yeah.
Anyway. All right, folks, we're gonna start. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Members of the select board present from my left.
Kate Plumley Stewart.
Tracy Young.
John Klug. I'm Eric Russell, and online we have Alice Kennedy. Alice, can you unmute and just verify you're there?
Yep. Hi, Alice Kennedy.
Thank you, Alice. All right, do we need to open a budget meeting formally?
I don't think you technically need to, if you wanna open it up for the budget
Section.
committee to discuss, they can, but
Okay. Right,
it's more of a presentation
Right.
to you guys. at this
Okay.
point.
so.
We haven't last year.
Did you have a form?
No.
Yeah, okay, so
Not a-
part of tonight's agenda is a presentation of the select board from the budget committee in anticipation of the budget hearing tomorrow night. Encourage everybody to go to that hearing tomorrow night. Many members are present, but they won't be having joined.
Eric, I'm having a hard time hearing you over the people.
All right, so we'll get started with approval of minutes from January 21st.
I make a motion to approve as printed.
I'll second that.
Is there discussion or
No.
corrections?
Good job, Whitney.
Yeah, as always.
All right, and with Alice online, we have to do roll call votes for everything. So Alice, we'll start with you.
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. All right, minutes are approved. Board reports. Alice, why don't you go ahead and start board reports?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, so the Heritage Commission met. Two items that they are currently working on are Old Home Days and some barn restoration work that they would like to eventually start letting the community know about the possibilities for barn restorations. And the Enfield Village Association met. They're currently starting to get ready for the Shaker 7, which is going to be Sunday, June 22nd this year. And there is an event, an evening business to business event that I think Ed may have more details on. I don't have the paper right in front of me, but it's on February 25th, I believe, Ed, at 5 p.m. at the Great Stone Dwelling at the Shaker Museum. But I'm also going to get better details on that because I may have misspoken.
Talk about it. It's February 20th, but I'll talk about it in my report as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
Conservation Commission has not met since last time, but we are meeting on Thursday at 7 p.m. here unless for some reason tomorrow's public hearing on the budget gets snowed out. So I think the big one that's on the docket that's going to be the point of largest interest is going to be discussion on Class 6 roads, and there's a proposal that was brought by Kurt Gotthard to potentially turn some of the Class 6 roads in this town into one or another class of trails. That was a pretty lively discussion last time. This time I talked to Shirley earlier today. The discussion is going to be centered around how we move forward and what the commission would like to do. So I invite anybody who has an interest in those Class 6 roads to come. It was a great discussion last time.
Tracy?
The Energy Committee finalized their wording for the warrant article for town meeting, which is the establishment of a reserve fund for energy improvements that would be funded from what will be called the Enfield rate by adding 0.2 cents to the rate. And then in the narrative proposing half a dozen different uses for energy improvements for the town.
Thank you, Tracy. John?
Since I'm on the budget committee, there's probably no need for me to go over that tonight.
Agreed. And the planning board met a couple times. The HOP 2 grant was the main topic, and that's also on the agenda, so we'll do that later.
All right, just a reminder on the staff side, we have 2 open groundskeepers positions. We are interviewing some candidates tomorrow, but we always welcome more. So if there's anybody that wants to be a full-time groundskeeper for the town, please apply. Whitney Hall and public safety buildings are going well. We're starting to settle into the new building. As with most new buildings, we've had a few, I'm gonna call them issues, but they're minor type issues that we're working through. As you guys know, everything nowadays is computerized, so we're trying to calibrate computerized heating systems and get everything set up right. So we've got a couple cold offices and some warm offices this week, but we're getting things lined out. This afternoon, it was a lot more even throughout the building, so some pains as we get in and get things settled out. We did get the coded security doors up and running. They're running really good. It's gonna be a lot better system than we have on this building or have had on the community building. It was nice. We had a small lock issue this weekend and we were able to unlock it from home and get it opened up for people and locked up. So little bit of programming on that too, just getting time set and doors set right, but everything seems to be going good there. We continue to work with the subcontractors and we're still waiting on carpet and a few things to come in that are on back order to get the building finished, but starting to settle in a little bit. Boxes are starting to get unpacked and it's nice to be in the new space. Public safety building continues to move along well. We're still ahead of schedule and we're still looking for a early May substantial completion date. We did talk with the contractors this week and some of the outside site work will have to be done probably June timeframe when it warms up a little bit more, but it does look like we'll be able to start moving some people in later May, early June. So that project's going well right now. If you're trying to follow along where we're at, drywall's pretty much complete and they're starting to bring tapers into the building. We're hoping to have primer on the walls and be starting the finishing processes by the end of this month. So things are moving along quite well there. Land use updates.
Yeah, I'll start helping.
Land use updates, ZBA hearing coming up this week. It would be concerning Optimistic Brewing, and a lot of that will kind of revolve around the discussion that we're gonna have here tonight. The planning board held a scenic road hearing for Liberty Utilities. It looks like their tree contractor, Asplund, will be in town for up to 6 months doing some general right-of-way clearing around town. Community development, as Alice pointed out, the town and EBA are working together to host a small business after hours event at the Enfield Shaker Museum Great Stone Dwelling. Thursday, February 20th. At this event, we'll have hosting the U.S. Small Business Administration and the Grafton Regional Development Corporation to review the services and products that they have available for our businesses. The event will start at 5:30 PM and run through approximately 7:30 PM. And our brewer will be on site to help with refreshments and some tasting. So it should be a fun event for our businesses to come to, and hopefully they find some things that'll be very helpful to their business from these two organizations. Zoning enforcement update, the illegal boarding house that I talked to you guys about last time, we have completed those letters and they were delivered by the police department. So they have a little bit of time to respond to those and we'll be waiting for that response. And then I'm currently working with Rob right now, on inventorying some abandoned and hazardous buildings around town, and we'll be working on what we can do to get those cleaned up or safer. And long story short, we may be in front of you again to talk about those, but that's something that we're working on right now. Police department, after you guys approved the purchase of the new hybrid cruiser, we've had it ordered and it's already being outfitted. It was really nice. Not only did we save money on the purchase and outfitting price, getting ahead of schedule, but the longevity of other vehicles will also be helpful as we get that on a little bit earlier. It'll help spread out the mileage on other cars. And we are now the full plan's in place. We have the amount of cruisers that we need to move forward with the new plan. So the department has received confirmation that they received the grant for the mobile data terminals that you guys authorized. that will pay 75% of the cost of the purchase and installation of the mobile data terminal. And just to remind everybody that, you know, it's not only nice to have that computer in the car, but if we have more of a major incident, those police cars can be used as little mini police substations at that point, that they can do everything in the car that they can do at those stations. It's nice to have those. Corporal Smith will meet his new canine partner, Rancor, very soon, and they will start drug detection school this April. We have had 2 local organizations come forward since we approved that grant, and they've offered to cover the veterinary bills and food for the dog for the life of its service. So it's nice, and as we move a little bit deeper, I'd like to thank those companies if they would like to be mentioned, but it's nice to see those people come
That's great.
forward and help, so. And then the police department just wanted to let you guys know that January was a really busy month and we've already logged 430 calls for the year in 1 month. So it's pretty busy, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the fire department did come to me and they're on schedule already to beat their call load from last year as well. It's pretty close to what they had, but they had a pretty big increase last year and it looks like it's continuing. DPW updates, they had 3 water main breaks this last week that they repaired. 2 of them were on Shaker Hill and 1 on Flanders Street. All of them were in very old cast iron pipe. So the projects that we've been working on are important. Initial water quality reporting from the new marsh well has shown very good water quality. So we're excited to continue moving that project forward. This is kind of new for you guys. We have a tentative agreement for a turnaround on Choate Road that's actually on the town line. The last turnaround that we've been using was about 700 feet prior to the Canaan line, and we've been working with Canaan they've been doing part of the road, we've been doing part of the road. So it's really nice to be able to get that down to the end of the town line. We have had a few issues dealing with, you know, how come it's not plowed yet? What's going on? And, you know, when we're sharing services like that, it's a little harder for us to answer, but getting that turnaround right at the town line will let our people turn around there and they can turn around there as well. So, we hosted this last week, a kickoff meeting for our sewer water, groundwater infiltration project. EES was there along with Horizons engineer, the contractor, and then like 4 of us from the town were there to start that project. It was nice to get that project moving forward, and it looks like it's gonna be kicking off this early spring coming forward. And they don't think they'll be here too long, maybe a little bit over a month to get all the work done. It does sound interesting. I might let you guys know when it's going on, but we're doing lining of sewer pipes. So they were explaining the process a little bit. It's a felt type liner that's embedded with resin. They can put it in the line, put air to it, and it just elongates itself and fills the pipe. And then they put steam to it and it catalyzes the resin and turns it into a hard plastic pipe into the old pipe. Pretty neat technology to see. And I'm interested to see how it works and go watch them. So it sounds fun, and it'll be nice to have nicely lined sewer pipes at a fraction of the cost of digging them all up and replacing them. And then we've entered a contract with Horizon Engineers for a water sewer rate study to be completed this year. And that should be done hopefully before we set rates in 2026. So we worked with them. They know our system well, and they gave us a very good cost below the RFP rate. So we were able to work with them and get that locked in. So happy to do that and make sure that our water sewer rates are on track for what we need them to do. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Ed? Okay. On to the business, starting with Optimistic Brewery land swap discussion for map lot 31, lots 33 and 34 / short-term lease. In our packets and put together sort of 4 different options, but just.
Do you want me to pull this up and I'll get it?
Yeah, can you do that?
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, if it'll take me just a second.
Yeah.
if I wasn't-
All right.
I mean, what, oh, good. Rob's gonna sort of speak to this.
Evening, everybody.
I apologize.
Nice to be with you.
Yeah, so-
As you guys know, the brewery is back on again. You know, there was some question as to whether it was going to continue. We were a little hit and miss there for a little bit, but the good news is through that whole process where we had gotten the approvals done for some zoning and some planning, work on that optimistic location at the old laundromat on the Main Street, 59 Main Street. The owner of the brewery had, in the time that we thought it maybe be off, project was not gonna happen. He found a investor, local, I think from Canaan, that was able to come forward and sort of be his silent partner and has allowed him to actually buy the building on Main Street, 59 Main Street. But you guys should all have the picture of that building in your packets. You guys probably have all seen it as well. You're very familiar with that. So that's the good news. The tough news is, turns out that the lot shape is such that he doesn't have a lot of room for a very important piece of equipment that he needs for his brewery, which is a walk-in cooler, an exterior walk-in cooler. Quite large, 20 feet probably by 10. That needs to be sort of bolted on. He already owns the cooler. It's at his other facility in Springfield, New Hampshire. He'd like to move that down here. And so as we start looking at options, and you guys have in your packet several options, I think that I've listed for you as the page in here that you can turn to. It's this page here, options for adding the cooler to the building. Started talking with Dan. Dan is the owner of Optimistic, really nice guy, very excited to be coming to Enfield. We started talking about what are some of the things that we can do if we don't have room for that cooler. We talked about finding another placement for that cooler. Right now, there's really no other good place for that cooler other than where we're going to be talking about, which is on the sort of north end of the building. We talked about possibly putting the cooler on wheels. Is that an option to make it not a structure, but an actual portable vehicle? That obviously does not really sit well with him or with us as one of the best options. So really the best place, and this is awesome, thank you very much, Kate. The best place,
Do you want me
we can leave it right there.
on this one? Sorry, that's a little slow.
The best place for the cooler is on this end of the building, right here. And if you wanna maybe slide it up a little bit,
Sure.
you can see the lot lines.
This is a really heavy file.
It is graphic rich.
Yeah, so.
If you guys must all be familiar, yeah, this is a great one. I stop right there. This is our parking lot. We call it the rail trail parking lot, which is kind of a funny name because it really isn't a great spot. I mean, you can access the rail trail from there, but it's more for the businesses in the downtown area of Enfield. Kitchen 56 and other
It's used
businesses.
for them. It's for the rail.
Yeah.
It is.
That's what it was built for.
That's what it was built for. But it's funny, we'll see why it's not really a great rail trail at this point, is because the land that this lot has actually goes between the parking lot and the rail trail.
I'm gonna go down.
It's kind of shady. Go down. if you want to.
It's gonna take us a second, but we'll get there. I think it's
Let's go one more down.
one more down. Okay. That's one, right?
Sorry, there's a right
This one?
That's
Okay.
So here's Main Street right here. Here's what is going to be the brewery. Back in the old days, it was a feed store, Holly's Feed Store, and subsequently was the laundromat. The lot line, actually, you can see that there's we call it Oklahoma. It's like a little panhandle on this lot that goes between the parking lot and the rail trail. It's a very thin little strip of land. Now you can go to the bottom if you want to, but.
The next one?
Yeah.
This one right here.
Right there, you go. So here's our tax map. So you can see that there's the building. This is the parking associated with the business, that will be associated with the business. And here's this really weird little tail of land that goes with that lot. Can't tell you the history of why that's the case, but it's strange, obviously. So what the brewer, Mr. Dan Thomas, would like to do is to put his cooler on the end of this building as an attached cooler. You can see the problem there is the lot line for the town is right here, meaning that the building is on the laundromat land, but this little out area here is actually on town land. There's actually a little fenced in area there now. You probably have seen it. I think originally we were thinking he was gonna use it as like a little outdoor beer garden. On further review, he said that would be the best place for the cooler. Now, if you want to go back up, well, thank you so much for it's okay. Let's go up to the next. So the next illustration is going to be right here. There we go. You can see this is the square of the proposed cooler location. And so, as you see here, the placement actually would mean that his cooler would actually be on town land. So what I'm here to propose to you guys is one of the best options right now to try to get us in the business of having a brewery in town would be to work a very short-term land lease for this little corner of land here to be able to put that cooler on the building and have the town essentially lease a little piece of land temporarily to him, be able to get this business started, get it going. He does need variance relief because he's actually encroaching on lot lines all around here. So he's actually on the agenda for next week's zoning board meeting to get variance relief and setback intrusion. But get the variance relief at the ZBA, and with your blessing, if we can somehow work a little bit of a land lease here, that would get us started. And then if you go to the bottom, Kate, again, the last page, what I was going to propose, he's very supportive of, would be a boundary line adjustment for this property. And here's why this might work if you guys are agreeable. If we could cut this land in this fashion where I put this white line, that would get the cooler onto the land that goes with the brewery. But in exchange for giving him this little piece of land, having him give us this strip right here for the town. So it's a win for him and it's a win for us. Why is it a win for us? Well, you can see this little parking lot right now with about 10 spaces or maybe 12. We could actually perhaps add 4 more spaces at a minimum, maybe a little bit more, right in this vicinity right here. That would obviously benefit all of our businesses on Main Street. Obviously, he's very supportive of it because it would benefit the brewery for sure. And as Ed and I have been talking, this little corner down here, you probably have been down there. Right now, there's like a little picnic table down there. I think there's a bike rack right there. Jim and I were just down there, went down and got a soda at George's and took a little look at it. So again, lot line adjustment is what we're hoping to do. Obviously, this would all be paid for by the brewery as a project. They would have to have a survey. There is a fairly good survey that you saw above in this presentation. Scott Sanborn was the surveyor who did it back in the 90s when it was Holly's Feed and Supply. At his expense, he would have to do that work. And obviously, we wouldn't do it if it wasn't beneficial to us, or even I wouldn't recommend it. But this seems like you guys might be able to get behind it. The community could get behind it as sort of a trade-off that it's good for the brewery, it's good for the town. As you guys all know, parking is a super premium in the downtown area. And we've been working hard to try to figure out what we're gonna do. I think I'm always gonna talk to you about that a little later. We did have a little win down in front of Jim Kelleher's new apartment building down here. He was able to actually put in a little retaining wall in front of that new building and get us 3 additional parallel spots on Main Street. So kind of keeping with that momentum, perhaps a few more spots right there. I think the public works guys could probably install it. It's probably gonna take a little bit of work because there's Mascoma River. But any questions you guys have, certainly answer those.
Questions or comments from the board? Go ahead, Kate.
Just in terms of snow removal, because that is, right now, I think some of the snow goes towards the building.
Yep.
I don't know, and you don't really want to push it into the river.
No.
So I just was curious what it would do to DPW's workload.
Yeah.
That's a pretty tight lot to turn a vehicle in.
Oh, this is terrible. My pickup truck with
I actually meet
doesn't
up.
want to turn in there at all, especially when it studded snows.
No.
So, but, you know, obviously, people with big rigs kind of figure out they're gonna park elsewhere.
Yeah.
Smaller rigs can certainly fit in there. I do know that Brian Degnan, when he handles the snow here,
Mhm.
he has a snow blower and he actually shoots it over the rail trail up onto the upper bank there. Yeah, there may be some complexity there. It's not out of the question that, you know, DPW could go down there when the storm is clear and when they're sort of getting things wrapped up. And you could, with a loader, remove some snow. We do have a snow blower on our sidewalk tractor. Maybe we could try something similar to what Brian has done. That's, you know, that's something we'll certainly cross that bridge when we get to it, if that's an issue. So
Jim might be able to speak to that too, but there's also, right now, that's our land.
Yeah.
And the land behind the parking lot is not our land, and we
Right.
shouldn't be putting it there, so we may be able to just push it straight back.
Yeah,
And then the other thing I wanted to point out as you guys start to talk and think about this is, we've talked a lot over the years of just trying to get rid of some of these weird looking lots, and this cleans that up a little bit.
that's a weird one.
The elephant trunks.
Yeah. You know, I think if you look at the shape of this lot, if you brought it back, you might have some snow storage over here where that little sort of pocket park is at this point. In the wintertime, nobody's gonna be setting up a picnic there for sure. Tracy, looks like you got.
I'd like to, I think it's a good idea, to do the land trade that you're
Yeah.
suggesting. But I'd like to see the developer provide the new parking. I think
Yeah,
for the
sure.
town to get something out of it.
Yeah.
We're giving up a piece of town land, in essence.
Yeah.
What we gain is nice, but not necessary.
Yeah.
And I'd like the developer to be responsible for developing the additional 3 to 4 parking spaces you're talking about.
We could certainly run it by. Yep. Any other questions on the board?
Comments from the board? I see Alice online.
Alice?
Thank you. So I'm just looking around that parking lot and the rail trail. Isn't there something called like the Mother's Garden or something? Am I mistaken? Is there a garden back there?
There's a little like square garden right about there. Gardens can be moved.
Yeah.
I've moved gardens at my house. I don't think that's anything that would preclude us from
Yeah.
doing this. Get transplant
No,
stuff.
that's not what I was suggesting. I just was wondering, like, somebody takes responsibility for that. Who takes responsibility for that? And should they be included in this discussion? So there's no like, so they're included.
Is it Dolores that's doing
It's
it?
kind of it's not a formalized system, but yeah, she's always, as far as
I feel like
know.
that piece of land is important to someone who really maintains it well, and so we could include them in the discussion.
Anybody, Dolores? Absolutely.
Because I took care of the flagpole end of year this year, so.
Yep.
But I don't always.
Any other comments from the board? No, all right, so David?
Both the building and the property immediately behind it, and the longer, section that is, proposed as part of the swap, are, right next to the rail trail. Has the Bureau of Trails, been involved regarding the, required setbacks and,
Yeah, they get notice for the variance hearings. We send them official notice as a butter, because they've certainly been brought up to speed on it from that.
so they've been notified.
Yeah. Questions?
So I think that what, Ed and Rob need is some guidance from us on whether we are interested in doing a short-term lease and then, or initially, and then whether or not we're interested in exploring the option of doing a lot line adjustment. It sounds like people are amenable to that path forward. I certainly am.
Why are we doing the lease as opposed to simply arranging for the land swap?
Because it'll take at least 6 months to do a land swap.
The surveyor that we're hoping to work with, his name is Scott Sanborn, Cardigan Mountain Land Surveys. I send people his way all the time, and he is absolutely the busiest guy in the Upper Valley. And to get on his schedule and get this done is,
A certain amount of begging.
if we're being realistic, 6 months is probably even.
In Scott's
close,
office.
used to.
I may be,
Yeah, after
short
we
by
get,
half of
Fair
that.
enough.
It may be
after
a
we
year.
get the survey and do that, then we have some public hearings and stuff we have to do. So it's gonna take some time to get it done.
Will zoning take care of any, curtain wall in front of the cooler for visibility and appearance purposes?
That would have been more of a site plan issue, but because he's adding this cooler, I think he's probably gonna need at least an amended site plan, because he's already got site plan approval there. The original site plan approval had this as being like a little beer garden, outdoor beer garden. So I think I'm gonna basically tell him that with this new cooler, he's gonna have to come back for a revised site plan approval.
Put a curtain wall in front of it,
Kind of screen. Yep,
well, not just screening, I mean, something that blends architecturally in with the building.
Yeah, yeah.
At least as tall as the cooler is, and they can be 10 feet tall.
Yeah, yeah.
And something that makes it look architecturally attractive to drive by and not recognizable as a piece of industrial equipment attached to the building.
yeah, because that building is a very pretty building, as you guys know.
Well, it's an historical building, as a former rail trail, depot.
Yes.
So I think it's important to maintain a visual look to the facility. And it's on Main Street, let's face it.
We can only ask him to do whatever screening requirements we already have in place, right? Outside of that, we can,
We
Suggest
can
it,
ask and express opinions, but we can't
Can't make
mandate
it.
things that are outside of
Okay.
the
Yeah.
zone.
We can if he wants the land swap.
Well, we could, however, I think that'd be a bigger discussion and certainly there's benefits to the town just to having, you know, a more valuable piece of property that's more flexible for the landowner to be working with them as well. So I think
I
it's gonna be
appreciate that,
given-
but we're in a position to say we're swapping a piece of publicly owned land to benefit a business. I don't want to get into a possibility of the definition of fenestration as per a certain convenience store a few years ago.
Yes,
If he's gonna put a piece of industrial equipment attached to the building, it needs to be properly screened.
I will absolutely indicate that with him. Yep.
I love the idea of the outdoor beer garden, and I hate to see him have to give that up. Would we be willing to consider giving up a little bit less of that strip of land so that he could maintain a beer garden idea? So it's up to, if you drew a line right between the 9 and the 7. Yeah, just give him a little bit more, so we put a couple of tables out there.
I think the town would probably be amenable to any sort of discussions with them regarding a land swap.
Yeah, he does have some consideration. I mean, again, if it's, as long as it's not a structure, he does have some room right along the rail trail in the back, you know, for some tables, things like that. He's even talking about, this may be another reason for amended site plan approval, that he was talking about maybe even putting a little window on the back here and selling ice cream cones or something, you know, just to make it even more appealing of a place for people to stop on the rail trail. I think that's gonna be one of the secret sauce recipes of this facility, is its proximity to the rail trail. I think it's gonna be a destination for people to come when they're on their bikes or snowmobiling or whatever, to stop and have a sample.
I'm not saying it's a beer garden per se,
Yeah.
but New Hampshire law would not prohibit somebody from taking a beer and walking right up to the river. You're allowed to take that right out of there, have a nice picnic table situated close to the water, sit down and have a beer. Perfectly allowable under New Hampshire law,
But not under Enfield Town ordinance.
right, I was gonna
which
say.
we could adjust.
Well, so we're getting way out of scope here.
But thank you,
We're way beyond where,
adaptable.
what we're sort of talking about right now. It's good that people are exciting for to come in. But do you need anything formal from us or is
Yeah,
the
so
guidance?
I would say something that would allow the town manager to negotiate a short-term, maybe a 1-year lease for some nominal fee. Obviously, you're not gonna make thousands of dollars on a lease here to begin with. But to get this building into a very high productivity as a taxable property, I think it's worth it for us. And again, I mean, you know, we've sort of seen this business as really kind of what we're looking for on Main Street. You know, this is kind of a great
We
example.
need a motion with specifics or just conceptual?
I think we can do conceptual at this time, but I think we authorize me to enter into negotiations for a short-term lease on that property. And I would let's say we can make it dependent on zoning board variance, or we can not, and it's just not gonna happen if you can't put it there. But I think we do that and then we'll come back to you with the the final lease for.
Yeah, I don't think
Final
we even need,
approval.
we don't need a contingent, because if they don't get the variance, they can't put it there, regardless of what we say.
I'll make that motion to allow the town manager or their designee to do exactly what Ed said. And Whitney is fabulous and Artie has typed it up.
And I'll second that.
You put that in the minutes too.
Alright, we have a motion on the table to allow the town manager or the designee to enter into negotiations for a short-term up to a year lease for that property. Is there any discussion from the board?
I think I see no need to ask for money for this. Instead, what I see is him, while the lease is being executed, going ahead and preparing the additional 3 or 4 parking spaces that we would like to see.
Yeah, he won't be preparing those till the swap's done.
Yeah, and I think if,
But I
Once he
think-
gets zoning,
I think we could do a very nominal fee if you guys want to for the.
I don't think the town needs money to do it necessarily. I just want to be
I
sure
think
that
we
we're gonna
should
do
have
the parking.
something, whether it's
Yeah.
$1 or something, we should
A
have
dollar.
You
something
need
for
to
it.
bind it with something.
Consideration paid is what I say.
yeah, and I think that we shouldn't make assumptions around future uses for that land. I mean, I think Rob's put out some good concepts and some good ideas, but I don't think we should make assumptions that, you know,
I'd like
We
to
can
have
just-
that public
Right.
hearing first.
That-
Well, and we can discuss those issues during the land swap part of this.
Right,
That's
yeah.
not tonight.
right, exactly. Right, so we have a motion on the table, roll call votes. Alice,
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Emily Stewart, yes?
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. All right,
Thank you,
that's
guys.
excellent. Thank you
Thank you.
for bringing that and continuing to work with them. This would be a great addition to town.
Yeah, and then we'll work with him and we'll come back to you on maybe not details of land swap, but we'll get some ideas from him and I want to get him the okay after the variance hearing, if he gets that to start moving forward and he'll be spending at that time. So just some sort of consensus that yes, we're interested in doing it.
Great. So next up is the New Hampshire Hop Grant Phase 2, and Rob's here, so I'll let him, bring us on that.
We were very happy to get notification that we received funding approval for New Hampshire Hop Round 2. You guys probably remember that we did go through New Hampshire Hop 1. The allocation on New Hampshire Hop 1 was approximately 63,000. New Hampshire Hop 2, we just got approval a week and a half ago for approximately 37,000. So between the two projects, about $100,000 of money for us to do work on zoning amendments or zoning ordinance updates, specifically as it relates to housing. We did a bunch of work in the first round with a contractor out of Plymouth called Resilience. And so we do have 4 zoning ordinance amendments that are on the table. You guys will probably hear about a little bit later tonight. Some of those are specifically having to do with housing that I'm really proud to say we're putting forward and they're not obtrusive. We're not talking about, anything that's going to be crazy wild housing, but certainly giving people more flexibility, specifically on ADUs and things like that. And so in this round, we have actually already found a contractor. We're going to work with the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission. Eric, part of the planning board, we had a fantastic meeting with a representative from that regional planning organization that's based in Lebanon. They have a woman who has been their housing navigator, who's going to be our point person, but they've got a stable of planners at that office that will be working with us to do more community engagement, more work to see what the community wants and doesn't want and sort of gauge community support for things. I'm excited, there's a lot of work to be done. The planning board has very ambitious goals to try to really clean up our ordinance. If you think about our zoning ordinance, it was adopted in the early 90s and it's been amended 25 or 30 times. So it really does sort of start to have that sort of growing pain that it sort of needs to be freshened up from a sort of holistic vantage point. So that's the plan. The planning board will be starting work very soon with Regional Planning Commission and doing a lot of events coming into the spring to get the community's feedback. We're going to do focus groups. We'll do some big engagements probably as we get closer to the spring. and really start getting into the sort of meat of the matter, which is, you know, starting to write some new rules and reformatting and doing all that kind of stuff. The planning board is very, very locked in on this, which I'm excited about. There's a lot of energy to really sort of take a real good, long, hard look and do what we can with the money that we're going to get from this HOP grant. And, you know, this all ties in. You guys remember the plaque on the wall there. Enfield is one of the first 18 towns in New Hampshire to be designated as a housing champion community, which you guys should be really proud of, as I am. It means that we're not just sitting back and putting our head in the sand when it comes to the housing crisis that's facing us all. We're doing things that are proactive and, you know, I would say taking a leadership role in the Upper Valley. And we're not going to destroy the rural character. I think there's some people out there that are like worried to death that we're going to do that. That's not what the goal is. We really want to try to put housing where we have services already, especially sewer and water, that you guys deal with on a daily basis or when you're having your meetings. So that's kind of the goal. We, you know, leave the conservation zone as it is. We've got beautiful land that's already been conserved, and it's actually over a third of our land mass in this town is permanently conserved, which again is almost unheard of in other communities around the area. So we think we're striking a really nice balance with keeping the rural character, but also doing things as we can to help with the housing. So that's a little update for you on that. Any questions?
So we will need a motion. I can read one if you want me to.
Motion to accept it.
Yeah, motion to accept and then authorize the town manager designees to execute all documents and take such action.
You have such a motion?
I'll make that motion to, maybe you're gonna read it for
I
me.
can read it.
Yeah.
Make a motion to authorize or make a motion to accept the HOP grant in the amount of $37,380 and hereby authorize the town manager or their designees to take such actions and execute all documents that may be necessary.
That's what it's saying. But just. That's my motion.
So moved. Second.
Oh, I'm claiming it though.
And Tracy seconded. Is there any discussion of the motion from the board? Comments from the public?
I'm really impressed with the ability to keep getting these
Yeah.
funds that help us get this work
Yeah,
done.
no, Rob and then David in particular have really done a good job staying on top of this one and keeping it going and everything.
I will also say that we're really excited to have Nate Miller on our planning board.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks to you guys.
Nate the Great.
He is fantastic and he's a ringer, you know, I mean, he's a professional from way back, so
He's been a circuit
So-
rider here.
that's right.
All right, so roll call vote. Alice,
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. Right.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, overview of loans for public hearing.
So I'll have Jim Taylor come up, but as he's coming up, we do have one loan that we're looking at putting on the warrant for watershed management plan for Crystal Lake. We talked about this one before. It's an SRF loan with 100% forgiveness, so it acts like a grant, but it does actually have to run through the loan fund, so we have to put it on the warrant as a loan, knowing that we'll get forgiven for it. At the last time I talked to you guys, we talked about talking with the contractor who's doing the Mascoma Lake site or the Mascoma Lake project right now and DES to see if we wanted to pull that 100,000 down. After talking with them, DES highly encourages that we put in for the entire 100,000. Because this contractor, if we end up with the same contractor, but because of the work of the Mascoma Lake project, some of the work for Crystal Lake will be done. And they said that we could add some of the water testing and different things that we've been talking about during the septic rule and those things to it. DES offers 100,000 and they recommend that we put in for that and we can use it to get a more detailed and in-depth plan. So that's the $100,000 loan, and then I'll let Jim talk about the $2.7 million loan that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little more details. After I wrote this, we had some more things come across the plate and we'll make some recommendations.
So, hopefully you got I did a memo on that. That sort of outlined I guess sort of how we got here, the reasons and whatnot. So we had did a pre-application last year for the, I guess, the phase two. We'd done several years ago, we did an asset management plan, and out of that hatched, I think, 3 projects. We did phase one, which was to, drill a couple new wells and to replace the ancient line that went out through the swamp along Maple Street to the Marsh well field. That was completed. We're just wrapping up the design part of the Marsh well pump house and the connection. And so that leads into phase two, which is kind of a 2-prong. Number one is to bring the wells that we drilled online and build an adequate pump house so that we could do water treatment, have a backup generator and some of the amenities that the town should really have on their water system. That's part of it. And then the second part of it was to continue on the replacement of the 1903 cast iron pipe, which is about probably 50 years overdue for replacement. It's been okay. It's been okay, but when you get into a winter like this one, you can just see, hand dug cast pipe that's 125 years old. It becomes a problem. And so this week we certainly saw a lot of that. At one point, we were losing probably 60, 70 gallons a minute. Luckily, we have the backup well at McConnell well. So we were able to kind of take a day and do one, and then take another day and do a second one. And then we finished up this week with the third one. And now the McConnell well is off and we're on the run. So the next phase would be to do 4 streets replacement and that piece. So we'd approach the SRF grant fund, which is a competitive grant. The project that we offered came in, I think, number 10 out of about 104 or 5 in the state. And I think only about 18 of them got funded. So we're in a good competitive spot. The package that the pre-loan piece is talking that said that we could probably get 50% loan forgiveness on this project, which immediately, sort of halves the giant sticker shock of 2.7 million. There's also some lead remediation. Most of the lead exposure that the town has on service lines is on these old pipes. We found several on Stevens and Wells. Those are on the list. And, Tim Jennings says that his is a lead service line at his house. He's on May Street. And so there's grant funding available to help remediate some of those. And I'm hoping that you folks can put this on the town warrant in its entirety. I know it sounds like a lot, but this is kind of a rare opportunity for us to take advantage of some of these grant funds. And the SRF program is great. I think last year, when everything's running at 6 or 8% interest, the SRF money is, depending on the term, is between 2.5% and 3%. So it's low interest with the principal forgiveness. And if we decided we wanted to make it look more palatable at the town meeting level, if you cut it back, I'm afraid that when we did the formal application, that suddenly we don't have the points that we had before, and a lot of that drops off. So instead of, spending 1.3 million out of pocket, we would be spending 1.3 million out of pocket because we'd get no SRF support. And that would, of course, kind of half the project, but the money would be the same. So I don't know if you guys have any questions or, I think the thing that I talked about, I talked to our engineer and she had sort of outlined some of the, you know, I think the FAQ, if you will, that could potentially come up at town meeting on this, and I tried to outline those as best I could on the memo, so.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate a couple things. On one, just a reminder that we would pass those two loans a few years ago before I got here, and we were able to get over 50%. Forgiveness rebate on that, so forgiveness on that, so. Not that this isn't a lot of money, but it's still, if we get 50% on this, it lands within what we thought we were gonna spend the first time. I also think it's really important to think about the lead money that's coming along with this, cause it's not gonna be too far in the future that EPA is gonna mandate that we change out those lead lines, and then we're gonna be under a timetable and having to do it anyway. And like Jim said, having this money out there, you don't normally see 50% forgiveness on SRF loans.
Usually it's 10.
10 to 20% is normal, and so I think we do have a great opportunity scoring so high. This is a good probability of getting funded and getting that forgiveness, so I also recommend that we put the whole amount on. In my memo to you, I did put 2.73, which is what the Horizon estimate adds up to. Jim's asking that we put 2.5 because this is a little bit older engineering report, and I would concur with that we work towards putting 2.75 million on the 2.75 on the warrant.
Up to.
Comments from the board?
No,
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to keep, you know, executing the plan we put together close to 10 years ago now.
And I think it aligns with
Yeah.
the asset management study that we previously did. So it's not like this is something we haven't already looked at and seen the presentation for many, many times. It's something we know we have to do. My only question would be, this estimate predates the challenges you had last week on Shaker Hill Road.
Mhm.
But obviously, we know the lead service lines are on the named streets here, which are, there's the 4 streets.
Mhm.
So which, you have some liberty to change if you found. that
Yes, yeah,
continue to be-
I did talk to the engineer about that. That was something I didn't add on the menu, but, on the memo. But the intent of the thing can be, the specifics are not as critical. So we could choose streets, but I will say that the 4 that we have put up,
Mhm.
you know, over the last 6 or 8 years have been 80% of our leaks and issues. So, you know, probably need to add Shaker Hill Road to that at some point, and certainly Flanders Street, because that one has had several, you know, caused by compacting at the Jake's thing and some other issues that we've had on that street.
How far out Shed Street does the water line go?
Goes to the end, and then from there it goes through the woods over to Lapan Circle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Skips across.
our loop, yeah.
Somewhat related, you probably haven't had a chance, I'm sure, do you know how much it actually costs to do one of those repairs last week? Or is that something you could pull?
I can absolutely pull that
It'd be
together.
nice to have information on
It'd
it.
be really good information to have of, you know, sort of how much does a break cost? Cause there's a lot of costs that we don't think about, like running an extra pump for
Mhm.
several days.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is not a zero cost, and you don't think of that as being a cost for a line break, but it
The last time we had one where we hired it out in its entirety, granted, it was on Route 4,
Yeah.
and so that adds a whole
Mhm.
extra layer of expense, but it was $4,200.
Yeah.
So, I know we can do them in-house cheaper than that, but still,
Yeah, no,
like you
but,
say, you start ticking them all off, that's
Yeah.
a lot.
yeah,
You said you were able to run the McConnell well, but the McConnell well is the one that has the silt issue.
Nope, that's the one that has the uranium issue.
So
It's right on the action level
It
of,
has to be
so
blended.
we blend it with the other wells to get the amount low, you know, and to keep it down, so.
And it's the one that has the good flavor,
That's
unfortunately.
right, yeah.
I'm just
And
saying.
it produces,
glows in the
it
dark.
produces hard water, which is, you know, very common.
Yeah.
It's tasty.
I did bring in some of my home well water and did a hardness with McConnell, and my well water at my house was twice as hard as the McConnell well. But, you know, McConnell well is twice as hard as Marsh well, and so, you know, there's these degrees of hardness in water and.
We're pretty lucky in Enfield.
Okay. So it sounds like the consensus is yes, put the
Yeah.
entire,
Yes. I think we have to be responsible, and if
I think so.
people
Yeah.
tell us no, then they're at risk for paying the fees for breaking and outages.
Mhm. And then the other thing the engineer did state too is that, you know, if you get to a point and you haven't spent it all, that they will take what we don't spend back and another town will use it. So it's not, you know, we're not forced to spend every nickel of that. And so, you know, where the bids come out and so forth, you kind of try to, you know, you do your best you can to make it come out.
What's the timing of this type of a project?
So if this was approved at town meeting, we would put an application in May to the state, which would be the formal application, and begin the design and permitting process. And probably would be constructed next, summer of 2026.
So the Shed Street work could be in the summer of 2026.
Correct, yeah, yeah. The well pump work might be sooner than that, because that's being designed now on the old other phase one project. And so that will be shovel ready probably in about 2 months. And, you know, so if we get approved for that, we could probably move right on to that.
did you need anything formal from us tonight? Or go ahead, Kate.
The other item that would be really good to have at town meeting and maybe get onto a slide would be the amount we took out last time and then how much got forgiven, so people can visualize it. We can't make any promises, but I think
Right.
seeing the dollars in front of you is very important, so see how much we saved.
I can remember standing in the tent and having that question, you know, well, how much grant money are we gonna get?
And my other
I
question
don't
is,
know, but.
you're the one presenting this time, right? No fancy engineer. The fancy engineer trick did not work.
Yeah.
Let regular human who knows and trusts, our people know and trust do the presentation.
Do you need anything formal tonight?
Not from
We have a
that,
public
we'll be
hearing.
going through the warrant. I
Right,
think it
yeah.
was more just to have the
Right.
conversation of what's out there and how things should be done.
What about this motion for applying for the congressional
That's the next
director?
agenda item.
Can I just ask a quick question before we move on?
Yes, go ahead, Alice.
So Jim, is my interest, like, there's some concern that this wouldn't pass because it might be because of a lack of understanding. So I just wanted to make sure that you were going to be presenting on behalf of the warrant article. Is that understanding correct?
I think I'm gonna have to, yes.
I nominated him.
Just from this conversation that you've been having, it sounds like, I mean, I just learned a lot. So I think, yeah, cool, great.
Well, it certainly solidifies the value of the homes that are on those affected streets.
Mm.
Which under present conditions are obviously in a certain perilous condition. Especially
Yeah.
considering
That's right, yeah.
the lead entrance pipes.
And then, you know, Shed Street, I mean, that's one that we're looking at possibly, might be a housing project. And, you know, in front of that, I know there's at least 4 Band-Aids that we've put on for leaks over the years. And so, you know, that would be a
That's why
very
I mentioned it.
important
Obviously,
piece.
the coordination would work out well for
Yeah,
2026.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll go to the next item, which
Eric.
is, oh, go ahead, Judy.
It's not the question, and it might be a crazy question, but, I mean, I think it's a great project and I certainly would be all for this, but I'm just, with all the craziness that's going on around us and the axe handles that are being thrown around at the state and federal levels, do we have any sort of worries or concerns that we may not get any sort of reimbursement?
So I haven't confirmed this, but I'm under the impression that the SRF money that is in the pot for us that we've applied for has already been received into the state treasury. So it is there. I mean, it's already been allocated. So, you know, the risk that they pull the plug on federal funding elsewhere, I don't think will affect this particular project. But if we waited a year, it probably would. I don't know.
The other thing that we do with these is they reimburse us very quickly.
Yes,
So it's not like a lot of our grants where we pay out $1 million and then they pay us back $1 million after the project's done.
or 3 years later.
We pay a 90,000, or actually the last one, we submitted for reimbursement. They sent us a check. We paid the contractor.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, that will be on the minds of people
Yeah,
that
no,
have
that's-
what's going on, and it could turn them one way or another.
I've been having those conversations with Ed. I immediately said, what are our risks? What do we have outstanding
Right.
that might not get paid? It's an exercise you do in private businesses. And it's really important to know that. So I think
So I will absolutely.
it's a very fair
confirm-
question.
I'll confirm my understanding with the state directly and that will be
Yeah.
a bullet point on at town meeting for the presentation or whatever.
I mean, the top level risk is that we have to pay the full amount.
Well, properly planned, it's a phased project,
That's right. Yep.
and with good controls, I think we'd be able to react if absolutely
Yeah.
necessary.
All right. So the next one is approval for congressional direct spending request.
I can jump on this one a little bit. Last year, we applied for the 2.75 million. I put 3 in there again, but $2.75 million through the Congressional Direct Spending Grant. We have contacted our Congresswoman and it did not move on in the process. Part of what ended up happening was what she could bring forward was about 5 million, and this equaled more than half of what she could bring forward. In talking with the staff in her office, we all think that it's a pretty good idea if we want to try for part of this project again, to bring forward the well portion of this project, expansion of new water, those types of things, score a little bit more points in that realm of things. And then the $970,000 for that portion of the project is a lot lower than the 2.75 million. So it'd be we think it'll be a stronger possibility of moving forward. Again, as we've talked in strategic planning, grants are good, but we want to direct grants in the place where we're already moving. We just had a long discussion about taking a loan for this. If we can get a grant for almost half of it and know that we don't have to take out that loan portion, I think that'd be beneficial.
Would you need letters of support like last time?
Yeah, we'd probably have to
Go back to the same folks.
do the same thing, but we wanted to talk to you guys about that project. It is an open grant process right now, so if we decide not to do this, if you guys had any ideas on other projects, that would be great, but I think we should put in for something. And these types of water projects are good, but it's also in the area of the congressional direct spending that gets the most applications for infrastructure type work.
I'd make the motion to authorize the town manager or their designee to apply for a congressional direct spending grant for the purpose of building a new pump house and connecting the new marsh well to the municipal system, and hereby authorize the town manager or their designees to take such action and execute all documents that may be necessary.
Second.
Can we add the amount of $970,000?
So in the
Oh,
amount
the
of
amount, so,
$970,000.
Motion, any discussion of the motion? Roll call vote, Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. Thank you, Jim. For coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Helping with all that. All right. On to the budget presentation. I will just start by reminding folks, this is a presentation from the Budget Committee to the Select Board. Certainly not going to discourage questions, but I will encourage people that the public hearing is tomorrow night, and that's the perfect time to get all of your questions answered. Tonight's really about briefing the Select Board on the work of the Budget Committee throughout the fall. So take it away.
Thank you. I'm not gonna go through the slides as slow as I would go tomorrow. I'm gonna skip content that you guys already know.
We're gonna come hang out with you tomorrow.
I know. So, tomorrow we're gonna review some important nomenclature. We're gonna skip all that because I'm sure you guys know what property taxes, revenues, and costs are. As all of you know, I kind of went on a limb and I stood on the podium at town meeting last year, making a forecast that tax rate was gonna increase 6.27%. The actual was actually 6.57, a little bit higher. When you essentially take the effect of the town valuation out. County and school rates were actually higher. School rate was actually substantially higher. County was also substantially higher. Town was actually quite a bit lower. I predicted 13, we're at like 7.5. And state was essentially negative, state education. That actually went down.
Yeah.
That's because they're not giving us any money back.
Right. So
They don't get any points for that.
I decided to do some statistics. With the help of the town, I essentially got every single lot tax bill for 2024. And I did a histogram. I'm sure most of you know what a histogram is. The median was $248 increase. And actually 26% of the bills decreased. Tomorrow I will also illustrate to people so in a reevaluation, histogram is wide. If there's no reevaluation, the histogram is tight. So I also did the analysis with data from the town for 2022 and 2023. We'll discuss that more in detail tomorrow. Quick reminder of last year, because it's gonna get people's mindset right. So the budget went up 13.7%. We decided to reduce the taxes by liquidating unused funds of 114, and then we used fund balance. And the net impact was a reduction in total tax of 400,000 out of 17.4 million or 2.3%.
I'm impressed.
And which means even if the budget increase for this year is 0, tax collection goes up by 405,000.
We knew that when we did it.
We-
We knew we might be sad. I'm now sad.
And I voted no for some of that, but
Probably should have.
inflation went slightly uptick, so we're no longer as high as we used to be before, but we are at 3.5. And that is again, as we agreed before, we're doing July to July, so that we're consistent year to year. So we're picking the month of July.
Actually really close to the overall year as well, if you look at that.
Standard slide, level of service, as you discussed, we didn't want to change anything. Okay, so labor and benefits. So labor increased from 2.569 to 2.752. That includes, so last year to reduce costs, we essentially didn't budget for half a police officer, which I believe was also because they decided let's train one person at a time and not two at a time. But that essentially meant half a police officer was taken out of the budget. Half a police assistant was also removed out of the budget, but those are now coming back in, so that's an increase. We increased some wages for seasonal workers to hopefully fill those positions. Because they went unfilled last year. The majority of the recommended compensation study adjustments, this will be the last year. There's a few people that are left because they were put on a much longer span. But the majority of people were here, would be done this year. So COLA was 3.5. Nearby towns, based on a survey that we kind of do informal every year, they were between 2% and 6%, and the average was 4.5%. We are close to that average. The increase in the wages is actually being offset quite a bit by reduction in benefits. At the recommendation of Brad last year, the town, with the help of Brad, actually went and changed health insurance carriers and caused the total benefits, not just the health insurance, but the sum of like FICA, insurance, all of that, to decrease by 5%. And these two are essentially the major movers of the whole general fund budget. Operating costs changed 0.3%, which is essentially for all intents and purposes stayed the same. Major movers are one, Shed Street work is done. Right, that was intended. Then there was the discussion on the cable access channel. Some of you were on the online when we had a discussion in budget committee. Some of the funds used there are being used for outfitting the meeting rooms in Whitney Hall, so we can do good presentations. And so that's really just shifting the 30,000 towards the top line. We have the finance software, which is actually looks like the next topic on your agenda. And then we had also an increase in Lebanon landfill costs. All the other movers in the budget are less than $10,000. I think it's 10, maybe it's 15, but I believe I used a cutoff of 10. So really not much changes in the operating costs. Debt service, no changes. Same numbers like last year, but I'm keeping the loans to remind people. So key cost reduction efforts were essentially in health insurance. It went down from $759 to $643, or $115,000 decrease. And then again, the town applied for grants. We didn't get, I believe that the 2.71, the one you were just talking about, that we didn't get.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, but that's just for completeness. So summary. So we had salaries increased 7, benefits decreased 5, operating costs increased 0.3, debt service essentially stayed the same. And so the general fund operating expenses increased by 1.6%. And any quick questions? Any questions at this point? All right. So again, the chart, we had the increases last couple of years, but now the increase is 1.6. As you guys will see later, everybody's going to be surprised that the operating fund budget went up by 1.6, but the tax rate is going to go up more. We'll discuss that in detail, but essentially we're seeing a 1.6% increase in the budget. Okay, quick fund balance. So big recovery. Since then, we've leveled out. The 23 and 24 numbers are unaudited. I think we have an unofficial unaudited number for 23, but it's still unofficial. The good news is that it's consistent with the value shown or a little bit higher. It is not going to be lower. But I believe I'm going to keep this slide for tomorrow the way it is and only include a firm number if the audit report is actually released. And hopefully that will happen before town meeting, in which case I will update this chart.
We did get the number from the auditors, but they're finishing up with things.
So surplus, there's a surplus. Despite the concerns with the whole loan payment, bond payment issues, there's still a surplus. Partially because, the town started tightening belts. We had a surplus of 183 in personnel, 298 in operating, a small amount in encumbrances. And of course, that went then down by this debt overrun because of the bond payment, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. The good news is, remember we were using fund balance for a huge amount several slides ago. Because of the surplus, the line is actually not decreasing a lot.
But we need to be really careful.
Right, so
To the bottom of our policy.
we are, and the reason why the bottom numbers are coming up is because the budgets are going up,
As a percentage.
because we're a fixed percentage. Okay, so again, an overview of expenses. You guys are familiar with this chart. I'm going to explain it in detail tomorrow. Again, the 1.6% is just that top line item. As you know, we have water and sewer. Water is going down by 3, sewer is going up by roughly 3. TIF is decreasing, but those funds are not impacting the tax rate. And then CIP is increasing by the 26.5. Some people may remember that CIP last year was less. The reason we didn't really decrease CIP. We decreased the amount we collected from taxes for CIP, right? So I decided to organize this a little bit different compared to prior years so that the use of undesignated funds is consistent year to year and not appearing in different line items every year. Revenues, so compared to prior years, I think the biggest one that was decreased is essentially state sources. I believe that's based on concern that was mentioned from behind me even earlier. We have a feeling we're gonna get less from the state.
Yeah, we're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Go to church.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything specifically, and I think I talked about this in my town manager's report before. We've been getting pretty much level funded. We got a little bit more than we budgeted last year, but we're just trying to be conservative, and we budgeted slightly less than we have been getting, knowing that we're going into a tough legislative year.
But they lowered the rate. We know they lowered the rate.
They changed it. We actually got more last year with the lowered rate because they changed the way the formula worked. The rate went down, but the amount the towns got was more. But we also know going into legislative session that they can change that with the stroke of a pen. So, yeah.
So we're budgeting less. That will also mean that the projected revenue that needs to be collected from taxes will go up. So I will again do my tax rate predictions.
You're a brave person.
I wouldn't, but that's okay.
So essentially we're seeing a 1.6% increase in general fund and we're seeing a decrease in revenue. So that means we need to be collecting more and you get, the difference is $250,000. Right? Because we're spending about 150 more. We're gonna get about 100 less. Need to collect 250 more. Problem is last year we used 400 and something to lower that tax rate. Now we're not doing that this year, so we don't need to collect 250 more. We need to collect 700,000 more. And essentially, I'm gonna jump ahead. So 88% of the increase is reduction in revenues and not using monies we had in the bank. It's not a whole lot I can do about that. So back to the tax rate predictions. My prediction this year is 5.5. So it is possible I'm wrong, right? It's not going to be off by factor 2, right? Because that would mean that everything is either factor 2 higher or factor 2 lower. That's very unlikely. But from my past experience now with doing it 1 year, it's possible county is double. It's possible school will be double. It's unlikely all of them are going to be double. One thing I want to highlight is that the school number is based on the budget for the entire district. Okay, I cannot forecast what the school will eventually say Enfield's portion will be.
Because it's average daily membership and we don't know how many kids are in it.
There's also a good chance the legislature and the commissioner of education, are gonna put more money into private forms of education. Meaning they're gonna starve the public schools and expect us to make up the difference.
So I'm just stating my assumptions.
Yeah.
I'm using COLA for county. For school, I'm using the whole district. For the town, I'm using our estimate, which is probably the more reliable number, but conservative because I am not assuming any increase in value, 0, and we're budgeting conservatively on taxes. So probably the town number will be lower again. And then stage education, I'm again using COLA. And I get to 5.5.
It's fair.
So that is the budget at a high-speed train because I didn't want to keep everybody here for an hour to talk about it.
It's
Right.
very thorough.
Nicely done. Yes.
Um,
Yeah, the questions for future comments?
Other than, I think that you've done an excellent job refining over the years and really drilling this down to something that's slightly easier to understand because it still is a hard topic. I think that the charts are really good and you make the presentation better every year.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
I try.
I think the whole committee
Yes. the
Did a great job.
Great job.
this year. Going through a lot, and 1.6% increase in the general fund is a very impressive feat.
I just want to commend Dimitri because I think he spearheads the presentation. He's good at watching and working the numbers and charts and making it graphics so it's understandable to a lot of people, not everyone. But we're certainly fortunate to have him on the committee and sharing. Agreed.
Thank you.
I will second that. We had two huge building projects going in the middle of this and
Yeah.
so Dimitri did a lot of, we built the budget, but he did a lot of number crunching and putting the spreadsheets together and helping make this into something that was a lot more presentable than we were able to give it this year. So I just thank him for everything he did for us too.
I echo that. Thirdly, for all your effort in putting it together clearly, even though I have some disagreements about some of the conclusions.
Thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, thank you, and encourage everybody to go to the public hearing tomorrow night, 7:00, right here.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Dimitri.
You're welcome.
Hope you still have a real job.
And I would further
do.
say that, I've been on 3 budget committees now, maybe 4. This is by far the best committee I've worked with.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, everyone just connected somehow and worked together. Thank you. You notice the same thing.
Exact same thing. I also have been on 3 or 4 budget committees and, not only does it get better every year, but it's substantially better every year. It's noticeably better. And, Dimitri's graphics are tremendous.
You have your own fan. You're never leaving.
Well, no, we said that. He's locked. If he tries to leave town, we're gonna block him.
You're gonna build a wall.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions, comments, or adulations, we can move on to the finance software.
So I really didn't want to bring this to you guys before the meeting, but our financial woes continue to grow. I'll summarize this a little bit and then tell you a little bit more of what's happened this last week, but as you guys know, we did a great job with the help of Brad Rich getting us in touch with a company to lower the cost of health insurance. One of the changes is in that, and I guess I want to talk about that a little bit, but part of our change was going from, a single plan, 2-family plan or 2-person plan and a family plan to actually age-banded rates. So every employee has a little bit different rate, but I think it's a lot more fair. Some of our younger employees on the bottom end of our pay scale was paying tremendous amounts of money more because they average everybody into one thing. So it's really, I think it's gonna help us on the bottom end of that pay scale where we seem to lose a lot of people. But with that, we need to be able to plug a rate in for every person in our finance software. When I called them, I thought it was gonna be a fairly easy change that they could help us figure out how to set that up and put it in. Of course, it's not. They have to reprogram a big portion of the finance software. So I started working with them in mid-December, asking them to do it. As I was heading out of town on vacation, we were working on it. And he assured me that by Thursday we would have the contract to sign. Got back from vacation in January, still hadn't got the contract to sign. We've had multiple emails back and forth, and long story short, we're going on our 4th payroll without being able to take the right amount. Last paycheck. We kind of staggered some people in some different numbers to get them closer to where they were, because I didn't want to be taking $200 or $300 from someone that needed to be paying $160, and I also didn't want to be taking $50 from someone that should have been paying closer to $100. And so we got it pretty close last time. I did do some work around and work this weekend to figure out, I think we found a way to kind of trick the system and do a lot of extra accounting to make it work so we can get on the right path. But, you know, all this extra work is taking away from other things that we can do in finance from, you know, and then as we do this, I'm gonna say you almost obviously run into something a little later down the road going, oh, I didn't know it was gonna program it that way. So then it's more work or something else we have to do. And we're just digging deeper and deeper in, I don't want to say financial trouble, but I think that's coming if we don't do something sooner than later. So I guess I'm coming to the board today to plead a little bit that you allow us to enter into that contract prior to the budget passing. And if the budget gets manipulated and something happens, then I will figure out how we put it in the budget to get it. I was able to negotiate with the company instead of paying a larger upfront fee that we can spread that over 2 years of budgeting, which brings that $67,000 cost pretty much in half or a little less than half, which makes it a lot more manageable moving forward. As I did tell you guys, once we sign the contract, it's a 12-month waiting period before there's any real hope that we could even use the product. So I'd like to get on the list as soon as possible. And then once we're on the list, I can become the squeaky wheel and maybe get it here a little bit quicker. I'd like to push them pretty hard to maybe be able to start next January, but I wanted to get the select board's authorization to do that because it hasn't been passed in the budget yet.
Seems essential.
I think we have to join the next generation of computing for accounting because the presentation we all saw showed that it could do the things we need to do. Some of the reports that Dimitri's been generating manually look like they could be incorporated into a regular process where they're running. And I think it makes so much sense to economize what we're spending our time on. And I'm very nervous. I think for our staff, it's very shocking when you get a paycheck that's different and it makes it hard to plan, especially since so many people live paycheck to paycheck for lack of a better option, right? So if you have a big variation and you're doing some planning, it's really hard.
Well, and it's not fair, and it almost seems to be getting worse. When I started, AccuFund wasn't the best program, but when we had a problem, we called them and they worked with us to fix it. Last year, it took 6 months to fix a personal leave problem that was computing wrong in there. And I can see that coming with this, and I don't wanna, I mean, we're gonna have to find a workaround or find a way to make it work for a while, but if we haven't got a contract in a month and a half, I don't know how long it'll take to get the work done.
I'll make the motion to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with Edmunds for finance software not to exceed a total price of $67,500 with payments spread over the 2025 and 2026 budget cycle, and further authorize the town manager or their designees to execute all documents and take all actions necessary.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion from board?
Absolutely crucial.
Roll call vote. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. Thank you to everyone who's worked on that. There's been a lot of review of that from a lot of different folks and figuring that out. So. All right, warrant review. Acceptance of petition article and then discussion of elderly exemptions and other disabled, blind, and deaf exemptions. All right, so. The beginning has not changed since the last meeting. And some of the discussions in Article 10 is a result of the discussion at the last meeting.
And we can vote all the money articles tomorrow. Right. Just go through them, even though they may not be budget, since the budget committee weighs in on them as well.
And then, we want to do the acceptance of articles. I believe there's only one petitioned article, and then we can talk through the exemptions.
I like that.
And the acceptance of the petition article is formality.
I make the motion that we accept the petition warrant article that reads, shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 40:13, known as SB2, to allow official ballot voting on all issues before the town of Enfield on the second Tuesday of March. I make a full sentence. Okay,
Is there a second? I'll second it.
the same, has to have second. We don't have a choice.
Yeah, I'll second it. All right. Roll call vote. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. All right. So that article will be on, we have a public hearing about that, don't we?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe we'll have a public hearing at one of our upcoming meetings. Discuss that. Okay, so the exemptions, elderly, disabled, blind, and deaf exemptions. So on here, those are articles as written in the draft 11, 12, 13, and 14. Or sorry, no, just 11, 12, 13.
Possibly, but probably not.
Right.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
If you want to go into the exemptions now, I put some information in your packet that we talked about last time. Updated the spreadsheet a little bit. Let me see if I can. Let's see if the other one got in there. Got off. Pull it up on my computer. I can find it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I probably could have done that too. Do you want me to do it? Did that
Do you
one-
have it in, do you have it in color?
No,
No,
from our packet though. I don't think the packet is. Hang on,
Let me see, because I have,
no, packet's not in color.
No, I didn't have it in color in the packet.
let me just pull it up in a spreadsheet. I like this. I don't know if this one I put rated in, so. Yeah, that's a little small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll scroll around a little bit, but, did some work on this. If, as you can see on the bottom. So if we take, as Eric discussed last meeting, if we take the Enfield rate plus the inflation since 2014. You can see the numbers there come out 60,000 for the first one and move down the line in yellow. I think that makes, and then we talked about the revow increase on top of that. So just looking at the two differences, and then I added the average and median from the communities above. So we can kind of see where they fall. If you look at the asset limit part, this was Enfield rate plus inflation from 2014, which makes a lot of sense if you're talking about their income, if we're looking at cost of living increases. Kind of where that would fall. I was a little bit shocked when you look at the inflation rates and the averages that they were actually fairly close. So I think that gives us a little bit more comfort, I guess I'll say, or that those numbers may be accurate. Like I said, I don't know that anybody uses a real data centric version to look at them. And then I did some work on these ones, but I feel that the disabled exemptions and income should be tied to the elderly one, so we're not doing different equations for everybody every time we do this. When I did look at the revaluation rates and stuff, looking at that, that made sense to me to tie the actual exemption based on property, the reval increase. And if we did that, I would also recommend that we revisit this chart every 5 years. I think it would be really easy to do the inflation for a 5-year period instead of a 10-year period, which is what the cycle we've been on. And then it just also makes sense to follow a reval year to look at what property values did and change the exemptions. So with that, we have some numbers here for you guys to look at and make some decisions. If we went with the reval rates on the actual exemption, I think it puts us right in the ballpark. It's a little bit higher than an average, but I think it goes along with what our property values did here. And then I actually like using the numbers from the inflationary increase.
I like that a lot. I was thinking.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot as well, and my only request, if we go forward with this, would be to document how you did it, so that, like you said, I think doing it the year after the eval makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think I told you guys last time that we created this big fancy
Right.
equation in Claremont, but this is simple.
Yeah.
And the numbers came out almost dead on what the averages of other communities are doing, and I think it makes sense to me, which I really
Yeah.
like. If your evaluation goes up this much, your exemption should go up that much. If we're basing on cost of living, then cost of living should be what your income change is.
Because my big fear was that if we raised the exemption and then we didn't raise the asset limits, right, we're not helping anybody.
Yeah.
The goal is to keep folks who truly are in need in their home.
And then if we want to wrap this all together, we have the disabled exemption down there. Like I said, I think that should be the same. It was really close. A lot of it was the same last time, but I got some lag too. But
The lag is real.
the blind one, if we look at that, we have the minimum blind exemption of 15,000. I don't know what you guys want to do there. If we stay there, some towns, that one's kind of all over the place. Some towns have it, some towns don't have it at all. I'm sure, and I didn't do the work on it, but I think a lot of them are at that 15,000 minimum. Some of them I'm sure are over that. The other one I just wanted to bring to your attention, just because it's out there, is the death exemption that we have never adopted. A lot of towns haven't, but it's there. So I didn't want to just leave them off the plate completely because we didn't have it. I think just throwing it out there, it's a possibility, but you know, like I said, we've never had it before.
I mean, to me, if you die, it becomes the responsibility of your estate. And so if somebody is living who's inheriting that money. So I guess I would tend to leave it off and not add it.
The death.
Oh, death.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought you said
Yeah.
that. No. Well, so, okay, so is being blind not considered a disability?
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. From a
In the-
technical definitions, can you just clarify why? Like, because
I
deaf
can't
and
clarify
blind.
why, but in state
No, no,
law,
that's
it's
correct.
separate.
That's what I meant. Okay, so just so everybody's clear.
Sorry, I was like,
From an RSA
I'm
standpoint,
down.
for this specific action,
Yeah,
blind and deaf is not included in the definition of
And
disability.
it's weird. I'm not gonna try to
Yep.
explain the legislature,
No, we
but
don't,
the blind one is a straight exemption. There's no asset limits. There's nothing that goes along with it. The deaf one is a lot like the disabled one where there's income and asset limits that you
I
have.
think some made a choice that being blind was tougher than being deaf.
Yeah, but the exemption's less. So.
Well, There goes that theory.
It's easier to get, but you don't get as much.
I think the important part is to
This is the
understand,
makings of a Girl Scout project.
Yeah,
is to understand sort of why there's three different ones rather than one. Yeah, which is just that's how the law is the fundamental answer.
And like I said, the town has adopted the blind one, we've adopted the disabled.
And are you recommending that the blind exemption go to the 26,850, which is multiplied by 1.79?
I don't know that I'm recommending anything, is that in my,
I think if we have,
It gives the number, it doesn't say it's recommended.
I said if you put it with the other ones, that's what it would be if we just up the 15
Right.
with everybody else's,
I think,
but
I think keeping all the exemptions
I think it's.
consistent with our evaluation makes sense.
Yeah.
I think escalating the exemption amounts for the evaluation normalization makes a lot of sense, because then you're consistently providing the same, the same real dollar exemption into the future, rather than having that value degrade over time.
Since I couldn't hear, I think a deaf exemption, I guess, I don't think we should be judging deaf or blind. Maybe we should put
I
it
think we should put it on the.
on the ballot and ask
Well,
for,
we have a blind exemption now,
but we don't have the deaf
but we
one.
do not have a deaf exemption
Right.
now.
I think we should be asking folks in our town to potentially adopt it. They can say no to us, but I'm not really comfortable with making that judgment call, especially now. that they're not
I think we should put it on specific.
Yeah.
Right, from a logic standpoint, I'm not sure it makes sense to have three separate ones, but that's the way the law is.
I'm with you on that. And hey, since we don't have a bunch of petition warrant articles, it's a great year to do it.
Also, there's room.
Is there other discussion from the board or comments from the public?
No, I think Ed's algorithm is a good one.
yeah.
The way he's calculated it works fine for me for the future.
Yep.
I particularly like the idea of the 5-year cycle.
Yeah.
As well. So I'm not sure I see the need, unless you tell me that this has to be presented to public meeting.
Yeah, it does.
Do these changes have to go to the town meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
They do.
by law.
By RSA, they have to go to the town meeting. Okay,
And if they fail, the old one is still in
In
effect.
effect,
It's not a repeal, it's a, do you want to change it or have what you already have? So there's.
So we'll need a shall we adopt?
Yeah, we'll use the wording that we had and we'll plug the numbers in.
Right.
but I'm fine with not establishing a deaf exemption at this point.
I think we should put it on the ballot and ask people.
Have people to establish a deaf.
I do, I think that if people have disabilities and we're providing
I mean, you
disability.
could put it on and your presentation can be, this is out there, we wanted to make.
So we would identify it as a,
Recommendation.
we would identify it as a new exemption, if you will.
Yeah.
One that's not necessarily already in existence.
Yeah. It's been,
Yeah, no, that-
been available, it has never been adopted by the town, we just wanted to.
And
put it
would
out
we
there.
use, for an amount, would we use the amount that we're using for the blind exemption, or would we go with the $15,000 minimum?
I think we make them consistent, use the same amount.
Which would be the 26,850.
Yeah.
Okey-dokey.
I'm waiting for the old and cranky exemption.
Sorry,
I
can't hear
think
you.
I'm old enough. I'm definitely crazy.
You have to complain out there, I mean, you'll get two.
So we'll have 4 articles, 3 modified as sort of around here, 11, 12, 13. And then a 14 asking whether or not the town wishes to adopt a deaf exemption.
Mhm.
Perfect.
I think that's a motion, isn't it?
It doesn't have to be
Not-
because we haven't voted on.
We haven't voted on them yet, so we're at this point, we're still just finalizing what the warrant will be. Because we'll need the exact language.
We
And I
need to
think-
adopt the warrant article tonight. I think we do, don't we?
We have a meeting.
Let me talk to Elise and we can do it tomorrow.
We can do it tomorrow.
We're voting on these. We can do the final.
I know it was either tonight or tomorrow was the drop dead date.
I was gonna jump back. I might have put it in your packet, but the loan article we did tonight, we wanted to talk through because there's a public hearing warrant for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna
Right.
try to teams in. I won't be here for that meeting,
Yeah.
but Jim will be here to talk about his portion and I can prepare it a little more and you guys, I just wanted to make sure you guys have the details of what those loans are about.
yep. So, so is there action we have to take tonight? Or do we want to, I suppose we could if we want to take action. We could, either way.
I think you could.
Sorry,
take
I just
action.
wanted to remind that I'm not gonna be here tomorrow, so I'm
So
not
let's-
trying to make anything
Let's
change.
do it
so-
tonight.
Alice is available.
Yeah.
Do that and we can try to get final wording for you tomorrow and you can look at it on the.
And so the budget, so the moneyed ones go through Article 10.
Yeah.
Correct, so we'll do all through Article 10 tomorrow night when the budget committee is present, unless we want to do them before the budget.
But I suggest that we do them tonight and then we could put it back on the table if we have to. That way we
No, that's-
include Alice.
No, that's good,
And
that's good.
We can always put it back on the table.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, I thought I'd like to do it tonight.
Right.
while Alice is available as
Thank
well.
you for telling us, Alice, because you told us
Yeah.
before, but I had forgotten.
I appreciate it, thank you.
We have to do them individually, I believe we do. We have to
I
do,
would, yeah.
Do you want me just to make a motion to recommend to go
Yeah.
one by one? I'll make a motion to recommend Article 5. Should we put them on a screen so? See which one direction? Update.
I think you probably should either put it on the screen or read it, so that they're, recording.
That was my question.
yeah, can we?
I can, do you want to do it
Yeah,
or?
Should-
Put it on the
Do
screen.
you want to put it on the screen?
Sure. You
Yeah,
already have it up.
it's further down. I'm scrolling. It takes it, because it's a visual, it takes.
I'll stop share. Yeah, I don't have the packet pulled up on my.
I do, and it is visually very, very heavy. And very angry about going to the next. Here we go. Okay. All right, hang on. I need to go track. No, that's- All right, let's share. I squint, I can read it. Okay. Bear with me a second. We're gonna.
I think we can read that first part of the sentence into the motion too, if you'd like to recommend Article 5 to see if the town will vote to raise appropriate the sum of 2.75 million to make improvements to the municipal water system.
Okay,
You can read the whole thing if you want.
sure. What was your pleasure, Eric?
You could start, but it is now projected,
Yeah.
so,
And do we want to read it to make a verbal
Okay.
in the meeting minutes?
that's, either way, it's fine.
I will make a motion to recommend Article 5 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,750,000 to make improvements to the municipal water system, including the interconnection of the marsh wells in preparation of applications for funding sources which become available, hydrogeological work, design and construction of the new marsh well field pump house, installation of controls and equipment, and replacing approximately 5,500 linear feet of 1903 era water distribution main, and authorize the issuance of not more than $2,750,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provision of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, to authorize the municipal officials to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. It is the intent of the select board to make associated future principal and interest payments from the municipal water fund operating budget for the life of the loan. That's my motion.
Second.
Roll call vote to advance this Article 5 to town meeting. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Conley Stewart, yeah.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Food, yes.
Eric, yes. Yeah. What's your pleasure regarding Article 6?
Just a reminder.
Yeah.
That you're not just voting to recommend the article, you're voting recommend to pass. On these, because there's always confusion every year. It's whether you
Right.
recommend passing the article.
So that was my intent when I made the motion. Do we
Yes.
need to say, put it on and recommend? Or are we in agreement if we're recommending it, we're putting
You
it
can
on?
make the motion that way, but I just wanted to make sure that that's what the vote is. 'Cause
Right.
there's been confusion.
Put
This
it
is what
on
the
and
wording
recommend.
has always been.
right.
and
Right, I see.
I don't think there's been any confusion about that.
I think,
I'm not confused by that.
okay, cool.
I don't think. we
Yes,
can.
that is my intent.
Oh, I know there was one individual who had an issue with it.
Article 6,
Okay, I will make a motion to recommend Article 6 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the purpose of completing a watershed management plan for Crystal Lake and to authorize the issuance of not more than $100,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and further to authorize. I really have to read this whole thing, guys.
I don't think so.
Okay,
frankly.
if anybody is really opposed, because otherwise I think that's the whole article.
Second.
Roll call vote. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes.
Read the next one, it's really short.
Thanks.
Article 7. I make a motion to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the budget committee recommended sum of $9,463,131 for general municipal operations. This article does not include appropriations concluded in special or individual articles addressed separately.
You want to say recommend in your motion to recommend?
No, I thought I said motion to recommend.
Mhm.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call vote. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes.
Article 8 is even shorter. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $579,268 to be placed in the capital improvement program, capital reserve fund previously established.
Second, whatever.
You can have the second.
Mhm.
Roll call vote to recommend Article 8. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes.
Article 9. I make a motion to see if the town will vote to discontinue the following capital reserve funds. Said funds and accumulated interest to date of withdrawal are to be transferred to the municipality's general fund. The funds being the library building capital reserve fund and the sidewalk construction capital reserve fund.
Second.
It's a motion to recommend Article 9, correct? Not.
Yeah, I said that.
No, you missed it that time.
No, I said it that time.
No, it's not. Okay.
Whitney, did I say it that time?
He's gonna put it in for you.
All right.
Watch too close.
All right. Roll call votes. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. Article 10.
You said it. What you gonna say, Article 10? You have to follow through.
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 10 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $71,525 for library building construction and improvement expenses. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance, no amount to be raised from taxation.
Second,
Roll call vote. Alice?
Alice Kennedy, yes.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy Young, yes.
John Klug, yes.
Eric, yes. All right, so we need to get the correct numbers
For 11
for 11.
and 12
Yeah, and I don't,
and 13.
I'll double check, but I don't think you guys need to vote
No, I don't think.
one way or another on those. I think
Okay.
that's just the exemption that the town will be voting
Yeah.
on.
And the rest of them don't need it
And
either.
14 doesn't need it, and.
Yeah.
What about 15? Do we need to vote on that?
No,
No,
Okay,
It's not moneyed.
no, okay, so those are all of the ones that receive a recommendation from the select board.
Look, we just made our meeting now photo.
Yep.
Good job, Ed.
Yeah.
Nice job. Okay,
don't let me forget, we'll try to get that deck wording for you, then we probably should have a motion to just recommend the warrant as written there.
okay.
Because we have to place everything on the warrant.
then, select board annual report review. I was trying to finish up a draft of our letter and could not get it done today, but I will send it out. I think Friday is when I have to have it into Lisa. I'll send it out for comments, probably tomorrow night.
I came prepared with ideas.
What's that?
I came prepared with ideas.
Yeah,
These are always good.
So I looked down the list. And, of folks that over time we have honored and, it looks like we haven't done Meredith and Doug Smith yet. I think that's a potential one. And, Lee Davis was another one I thought of because she served on conservation for a very long time. And, has retired from conservation. So those are my two throwouts for the pot.
Doug and Meredith do have an engraved stone
I know
right
they
in the park. Although their names have been mentioned to me.
this would be an appropriate year, given that the park is reaching.
I think this would be the.
This would be a really good year to do that.
Because they've been on a lot of other committees, so I kind of was like,
Many, yes.
yeah, I just thought it might be nice with the park and,
Yeah.
but I
I
wanted
think,
to.
I like that idea a lot.
I like that idea too.
Wouldn't he strike everything we just said?
All the nice things.
Well, I wouldn't want it to hit the
No.
meeting minute notes
They
until,
can read it, but
you know,
it's,
you need to vote on that?
You can summarize that like non-public, just.
Yeah, something
dedication
like that.
of the-
watch it and someone may tell
A
them.
discussion of,
The spirit
individuals.
is there, right?
I think we have a really nice picture of that we can.
I'd
put
like
in.
to
I think we don't need a vote on that. That was a solid consensus.
Yes.
Unless somebody
Do
wants to do
you
it.
wanna ask Alice or anything?
Yeah.
She'll chime in if she feels the need.
So wait, what did you just say?
So we're just discussing the dedication of town report and,
Yeah.
and whether or not you had any input based on what was just said, or whether we have consensus.
Yeah, so I actually sent Elisa comments earlier today. I don't know if I copied you, Ed, but it was very in line with this discussion. Regarding the dedication, I kind of said more general, like lakeside park thing, but I think if we're gonna do what we just said, I do agree that today is the year to do it. This year is the year to do it.
We could do,
But
Good.
were we also gonna talk, were you talking about the photo?
Okay, we
I
should-
said we have some samples, but you have one.
No, I don't have samples
Oh,
of like the
Lisa.
cover. I have the picture of Doug and
Doug
Meredith
and
by that I could put with the dedication as well. That's what I think would be.
The cover we discussed would be a picture of the,
Enfield Public Safety Building.
right. That's fine.
Wait,
Um,
didn't it
we
say
have
that
a
we did
different
public
record
safety
here.
building last year?
No, we
No.
did Whitney Hall.
We did Whitney Hall last year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Did the architect of the public safety building ever give us an honest rendition of that building?
I think we should do it as.
Yeah,
built.
but it was talked at the last meeting
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, we talked about it,
As we
making
get
it up.
closer to town meeting, I'll let it get as done
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
Staff with you
Yeah.
under construction.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
So
That works.
I had told Elisa that I would do a little write-up on Barbara Dow because she was the one person on the list of deaths from 2024 that I know was she was on the FAST for 27 years. So figure we better, I'll do that. I said to her, does someone want to write Meredith and Doug, or I can do it? But John, you're a very good writer too, so I won't take that away from someone.
How much do we usually write? Pretty short, right?
Yeah.
It's one paragraph.
I can do that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
When is it due?
Yesterday.
Friday if possible.
Yeah. Good, right.
75 words or less, John.
You look at prior years. and
That would
just
make it
go-
harder.
I know they have a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
All right.
And we can add the picture after, so if we can just get the little.
Look at us get stuff.
On to the sign.
I don't think that,
Sorry,
that's just,
are we on to the sign, Eric?
it's a no action, but.
Well, that's a no action, but
I had a couple of comments about it.
And I'm actually gonna have him rewrite that letter a little before we put it out. Because I want a little bit more detail of.
The only comments I had about the sign was if and when Shaker Hill Granite ever leaves, I hate to have to make a whole new sign.
No, it's gonna be 2 panels. But
Okay, then you hit it exactly. There'd be our panel up above and they'd have a panel down below. Yeah, that's all. That was my one thing. We're on the same page.
yeah, we've
Thank
already talked about that
Excellent.
for the same reason.
Great, thank you.
I think my one thing is, so we always tell you, you should look at the page and see what you see first. And we see Shaker Hill Granite first, and I know they were there first and they were very kind to do
Well, I
it.
think it'll be a little different too.
That-
That's great.
that's dark,
It'll
yeah.
be white.
White, okay. I was like, it's kind of hard to see gray.
Yeah.
Okay,
That sign's actually built around theirs because in our contract of buying it, we stated that we build them a sign the same size and stature, so that's built off the exact same size they have.
do they want to make it nice granite?
Mhm.
That'd be
Not the
great.
sign, but they did donate granite countertops to the
What
whole
about
building.
this piece here? This could be really nice granite piece.
I can ask them. They're already doing that.
Different
No, I know
subject,
they are, but
different
it's,
subject.
so
As I'm looking at this artist rendition of the emergency service building with the nice blue flag, and don't ask me what blue means. We don't yet have a flag in front of Whitney Hall.
But I don't.
Have we ever had a flag there?
Oh, absolutely, there's a flagpole right
There's a
there.
flagpole there and we
We
actually.
just
had them-
moved in and haven't
don't-
thought about a flag yet.
we don't have a grounds person. That's usually who puts the flags out for us.
Well, we can have, yeah,
Have somebody
But
else do
somebody can
it.
hang flag.
Oh, I know. but-
It's lit, so we only have to hang it once.
moving on the agenda, public comment. Any
That was my public comment.
public comments for the board? Seeing none. Other business? I don't see any other business. We do have Ben's asked that we have a non-public session for personnel under 91A, 32A.
32A.
So moves.
I need to.
So, roll call vote to go into non-public. Alice,
Alice Kennedy, yes.
was there a second?
I'll second.
Kate Plumley Stewart, yes.
Tracy, yes.
John Clute, yes.
Eric, yes. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We're going to have a short non-public session now.
Assume you guys do not need me this day.
Thank you.
Really like. You're right.
I'm trying to figure out how to. I don't know how to put people in a waiting room, but this is just very short and we're not doing anything else,
We
right?
can just leave.
Okay, I'm
And we,
gonna hit.
and we don't have to record this part.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that's fine with this,